From Russian missiles to a tussle with illegal poachers, the fishermen on Deadliest Catch definitely had their fair share of the illegal side of their work. Crabbing is one of the most dangerous careers in the world, but the team at Deadliest Catch knows no other life. In this video, we explore some of those illegal moments, the risks posed, and how the situation was resolved. Let's get started. Sig Hansen, captain of the Northwestern vessel, is on the boat alongside his team when he notices something weird on the CIC radar. There is another ship just a few miles out calling itself America No. 1. He investigates further and confirms that there is indeed another ship, a trawler, 105 miles away and right on his fishing path. Sig is afraid since he knows that the ship might go through his spot and destroy all his fishing gear. Sig and his team have already deployed the pots and left them soaking in the water. Usually, crabbers mark their pots with buoyant float, as this allows them to keep track of their pots and retrieve them when the time is right. If something, like the trawler, passes before the buoyant, the trawler easily disengages the pots and the buoyant, making the pots lost to the sea. This is why Sig is so hell-bent on protecting his pots. He quickly gets his radio and tries to communicate with American 1, hoping that he can ask them to turn back or change routes to evade his space. He calls a few times but gets no response. He starts getting aggravated, since no one is responding, and when he and his team started setting up their nets, no one was around. As the trawler draws closer, Sig realizes that he is about to lose gear worth $20,000. He quickly talks to his team, alerting them to what is happening and asking them to continue working, but they have to be quick and efficient to prevent losses. Sig's team manages to catch a few crabs, making it a successful night, but they have to be careful, seeing that the trawler is now tailing them 2 miles back. Sig explains that fishing is always a gamble, but based on the haul they have today, he is quite confident that the journey is worth the risk. In most cases, crabbers often encounter such huge ships on the way, sailing close to their pots. There are certain laws and regulations set in place to avoid such cases like what happened to Sig. Certain measures require that huge trawlers or freight ships announce their presence, and they are forbidden from using routes popularly known for crabbing. However, certain captains do not obey this law, and this causes great losses to crabbers. The next instance is very surprising and deeply intriguing. It also goes to show that sometimes captains and their crews have to be on high alert and ensure that they are ready to defend themselves from poachers. In the crabbing world, poachers are people who trail fishing boats intending to steal the boat's pots, while the crew and everyone else are less aware. Normally, they present themselves as other fishermen, crabbing around like everyone else, but these are thieves. Deep into their fishing journey, the captains of Wizard and Aleutian Lady notice something very weird. A strange vessel is tailing them from a distance, and they have no idea who the people in the ship are. The two captains, Keith Colburn and Rick Shelford of Aleutian Lady, start talking through a radio call in regard to the situation and what the vessel is doing in the waters, 6 miles from their respective positions. Keith is positive that the vessel is watching them, and he has an idea of how to confirm their suspicions. In such situations, these boats usually look at the active crabbers in the area, monitoring their movements so that they can find the perfect time to leap in and steal the pots. In most cases, the fishermen rarely realize their pots are missing until it is too late. Keep in mind that when the pots are set on the ocean, the crew keeps watch by tracking the floats on the pots. This means that a pot can drift out of sight and can easily be snatched by poachers. He wants to throw the boat off as he suspects that the people in the vessel might be after the fishermen's catchers. Rick steers his boat to head west at 270 degrees, and Keith confirms that he is losing them on his radar. Rick then turns off the automatic identification system to make his vessel invisible. Keith hopes that Rick is far away and out of range. However, the crew of Aleutian Lady faces a challenge when one of the lines for the vessel's pots gets tangled up. While the crew works on fixing that, Keith advises them to be careful and let him know in case something comes up. Later that night, Keith confirms to Rick that the strange vessel is still trailing them. Since both fishing vessels are invisible, the team decides that it is time to act. They quickly switch off the lights on their vessels and wait until the strange vessel draws closer to their line of sight. As the vessel advances, the crew prepares themselves for an ambush, hoping to scare away the guys in the other vessel. A few minutes later, the strange vessel enters the line of sight. This triggers a chain of reaction, where the crews on both fishing vessels unleash dozens of fireworks and aim them toward the oncoming vessel. They also turn on their lights to make it seem like an ambush. and scare away the vessel. As expected and hoped, this action caused the oncoming vessel to quickly turn back and leave the waters, making the fishermen celebrate their victory. On another fishing expedition, the Bandit vessel and the Wizard find themselves veering a little too close to the Russian border, and their experience turns into one of a horror show. On this particular day, Keith Colburn and Bandit Captain Hillstrand find themselves near the U.S.-Russian border. Normally, they don't fish this close to the border, but for some reason, they did. There is a rivalry going on between fishermen from these two regions, as in most cases, the Russian trawlers end up fishing in the U.S. waters. Today, the two captains are determined to protect their waters and fish there as needed. Both captains are quite confident that this time, they will get enough to take home and pay their crew. The two vessels hoist their American flags to declare their presence, and then drop their gear into the water to start fishing. At this minute, the teams want to fish there, so they drop the anchor and the pots into the sea. After dropping the pots, the crabbers usually let them stay in the water for a certain amount of time so that the crabs can get into the pots. Since the teams are on a dangerous territory that could spell trouble for both of the vessels, they ensure that they don't lay their pots too far. However, they soon discover that their gears are too close to each other, so Keith volunteers to steer aside so that they can cover more ground. Everything is going on well, and the teams are getting good loots when suddenly, the waters become a little turbulent. It is not enough to create substantial damage, but it is enough to cause the Wizard to start drifting. Keith struggles to regain control of his vessel, but the winds are too strong, and soon he finds himself in the Russian waters. This is quite scary, and Keith has to hurry back to the U.S. since he knows that something bad might happen. He doesn't want to find out, and he hurriedly steers his ship back to the U.S. He hopes that he hasn't started a war with his carelessness. The two captains continue fishing, believing that any threat caused by the infringement is long gone and that they weren't noticed. However, something strange happens, and this causes panic and chaos to the team. Wizard Deckhand Freddy sees a trail of smoke from a distance and quickly informs everyone about it. They are all horrified to see a rocket aimed straight toward them. Keith quickly calls Hillstrand to inform him of the oncoming missile, and all they can do is watch and hope that nothing happens to them and that the missile isn't directed to their vessels. Luckily, the team lives to tell the tale, but this is an experience that they cannot forget. Saga Captain Jake has had a very successful season, and he is happy about the loot that he has hauled so far. Cheyenne, the greenhorn at Vessel Saga, mentions that the crew suspects that Jake knows where to find fish, seeing that he has been so successful. Jake himself is celebrating his luck, and he feels that nothing can take away what he has. On the final day, Jake realizes that there is a freighter steering menacingly close to where he has set up his pots. He reaches out to the freighter, and someone replies. Jake then shares what is happening, warning it that it will soon stumble upon his strings, so he wants them to back off. However, the response Jake gets is not what he is expecting. Like in most of these strange vessel cases, Jake gets no reply. Jake tries communicating with them once more, realizing how close he is to having his fishing gear damaged. He informs the freight train that they are close to sailing through his fishing gear, and they will automatically damage it. But the freighter maintains radio silence. Jay starts getting frustrated as he sees the freighter getting closer and closer to his floats. After a few minutes, Jake watches in horror as the freighter sails away. He asks his deckhands if they can see his gear anywhere, but at that time, it is too late to do anything, and Jake ends his season on a disappointed note. The Bering Sea is quite a huge expanse of water, but on one occasion, the Wizard Captain Keith finds himself in a very precarious situation. Keith finds himself yelling at another fisher boat that has accidentally strayed right in his path. Keith radio calls the captain of the smaller boat, shouting at him for being too ignorant to create such a mess. He starts asking him to steer away, but it is already too late, and sadly, the smaller boat hits the Wizard's hull. This is quite a scary moment for everyone on board, and the crew rushes to check for any damage. Keith yells at the small vessel's fisherman, but he knows that at some point he has to stay silent and come to terms with what has just happened and the implications it holds for his vessel. He knows that a small leak in the hull might cause the vessel to start taking in water and land them in hot water as they lay with the fish. His worry is not unmerited, seeing that they are quite far from the shore. Keith feels he is ready for damage control, but before that, he guides the captain of the smaller boat on how to safely exit the area without causing further damage to either vessel. He also advises him to ensure that he checks any damage done from the ram-on, and he hopes that they are okay. Keith walks to where his crew is and finds that they have fixed the point of collision. However, the worst is far from over since the team doesn't know whether the vessel has sustained further damage. The team successfully closes the collision void and continues inspecting the vessel to see whether any other part has sustained damage. Keith's fear isn't unwarranted, and he keeps on double-checking everything since he knows how dangerous his career can be in the face of such an accident. After much deliberation and investigation, the crew is happy to see that everything else is in its right place. Keith is relieved, and he learns that the Wizard must have hit the other boat with the anchor due to the collision. This could have been so much worse, but for now, everyone is happy that they lived to see another day. The last incident involves the Summer Bay vessel captain Wild Bill. He has been having issues with his deck boss Nick, who has been struggling with work lately. This is a very frustrating thing, as one needs someone who is in total control and someone you can depend on fully, since the waters are unforgiving. However, Nick explains that the reason he's been slacking off work lately is because he has a health problem. Like the great boss that he is, Bill takes Nick to the doctor so he can get tested and hopefully screen out the problem. Unfortunately, the doctor's test results come out clean, indicating that the doctor couldn't find anything wrong with Nick. Nick is excited about the results, but Bill is worried, as he knows that something must be wrong, since Nick is not behaving at his optimum as a deckhand. Bill decides not to proceed further, and he allows Nick back on the boat and hopes that with time, Nick will be better. He also wants Nick to share the doctor's good news with the rest of the crew, as they are all worried about him. However, things take a dark turn when Bill seeks out Nick later that evening. He finds that Nick has indeed been lying all this time, but the truth is much more sinister than Bill expected. It turns out that Nick had been abusing opioids, and the second he got away from Bill, he went and got high. Bill is so disappointed since he actually thought that Nick was suffering from a disease, and he was deeply worried about him. To learn that Nick is abusing drugs makes him so angry, and he leaves, cursing at Nick. He feels that he cannot have a drug addict on his boat, as this puts everyone at risk. Consumption of drugs is something that could even get his fishing expedition halted by the authorities. Many cases where fishermen have been charged with drug smuggling are reported, and Bill is afraid of what this could mean for him. Later, Bill goes back hoping to talk to his deckhand, but he cannot find Nick. Instead, he finds some drugs in Nick's sleeping area, further deepening his anger and disappointment. There you have it, folks. Let us know which illegal moment on Deadliest Catch caught your attention in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.